been quite impressed by. So aged 6, I believe, she moved to Miami to escape civil war in El Salvador. And then in November 2002, she returned to run her family's farms there. And the very next year, with her first crop of Finca Kilimanjaro, she went on to win El Salvador's inaugural Cup of Excellence competition. And in doing so, she became the first ever female producer to win a national Cup of Excellence competition, which is pretty amazing. So one of the things that sets her apart is her absolutely scrupulous approach to quality. She's involved at every step of the process, and that's why she's got the coffees we have here today. So Aida, you weren't always in coffee. What did you do beforehand?
Well, first of all, thank you, Penny and Peter, and the staff for having me here, and thank you all for coming. And I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat the question.
Sorry, before coffee, because coffee started for you quite a bit later in life. It was, you'd spent some time in America before then. What did you do in between?
I worked in the hospitality industry, so nothing to do with coffee.
And so when you came back to El Salvador, what did you know about coffee? Did you know what you were getting into?
No, I had no idea what I was getting into. I always say being a farmer is such a dirty, nasty, beautiful and magical thing, but it is dirty and nasty. So yes, I didn't know I was getting into that.
Yeah. And at the time, were there many or any female producers in Latin America? Was it?
There's always been female producers, none that I had met in El Salvador at the time when I moved back.
Yeah.
But I know there's some out there.
Yeah. So it was only 2003, I think, with your first crop of Finca Kilimanjaro that you won the Cup of Excellence competition. What did this do for you and for Finca Kilimanjaro?
Well, we actually entered 2 of our farms and came in first and 16th with Los Alpes. And, for me, it was, again, not having any experience, not knowing what I was getting myself into, didn't realizing how challenging it is for producers to meet roasters and buyers. So this gave me the opportunity to, through the auction and then through the community, to start getting to know buyers.
Yeah. So your role is you're a producer, and that's not just being a farmer, is it? It's a little bit more than that.
Well, I oversee, I have an agronomist that helps us out, and we have to plan out, people think that after harvest there's nothing else to do, and that's when really everything begins, which is, the pruning of the coffee trees, the shade trees, foliar fertilization, soil fertilization, and so on and so on. Weed control.
Yeah, a whole lot of different things. And it's not just coffee either. You have other crops on your farms.
Well, the only one would be the farm I bought in 2010, which is Tanzania, and there I do have a fruit that's called jocote. But that's the only one that has another crop on it.
Cool. So you are 5th generation in coffee. Talk us through your family. When did they first start producing coffee?
So on the Batlle side, I'm 4th generation.
Okay.
And that started in the early 1900s. And then on my mother's side, I am the 5th generation, and that started in the 1800s. Yeah. In the mid-1800s.
Yeah. And I've heard that they were the people that brought bourbon to El Salvador.
Yes, it was my great-great-grandfather that actually brought it.
Where did he bring it from?
He was the mayor of the city of Santa Ana at the time, and he was friends with the Guatemalan president who'd been to Brazil and gotten it there, and then brought it back, and then I don't know if he called them or telegrammed them that day. That was the end of the 1800s, and that's how he got it. Yeah.
So you have a lot of bourbon on your farms?
Yes, we do.
Yep. What does that bring to the cup?
Bourbons tend to be very juicy, very sweet. They're quite special, but quite susceptible to diseases.
And you have a couple of other varietals?
We do. We have, in one of our farms, we have a lot of Típica.
Yep.
And then in Kilimanjaro, it has more Kenya than Bourbon. And it's a Kenya variety that was brought over by Kenya, from Kenya, but we don't know which one it is.
That's always confused me because I see Kenya and I'm like, Okay, that's a country. Is it a varietal?
Well, and yes, it's a variety someone brought from Kenya to El Salvador.
So it's the mystery,
It's
big
the mystery
one.
one.
Cool. So your farms, what are they like in terms of size? How many?
Oh, you guys do acres?
We do.
Perfect. Okay, so as far as acres go, our low-grown farm is about 400 acres, 150. And then the Kilimanjaro is 65. Los Alpes is 72. Mauritania is 45, and Tanzania is 40.
Yeah. And so the trees on those farms, in terms of age?
We have ones that we just planted this year, and then we also have trees that are over 100 years old.
Really?
That we're keeping, as long as they're producing, I'm keeping them.
It's pretty incredible. So you have a lot of workers on your farms during harvest and also a permanent workforce, approximately?
The permanent ones throughout the year full-time will be about 100. And then during harvest, we can go up to 500.
Yeah. Do they live on site or in Santa Ana or?
They actually live around the community where the farms are located.
And you're quite involved in the community?
We try. We don't have a wet mill or dry mill at the farms, and then we also don't have, they're small, so we don't have a school or a clinic. So we support all the local clinics and the schools around the farms.
And I heard there's an initiative you quite like supporting called Senior King and Queen.
Yes, there's an event they have in the community every year to crown a king and a queen that are over 80 years old.
Something to aim for. Okay, so in terms of challenges on the farm, what are the biggest ones for you at the moment? I know I've tried to bring you over a couple of times before and something always stops you.
Well, it was usually during harvest, and the biggest challenges we've had have been cherry theft.
Who steals the cherries?
If you're not careful, we have a private security company that monitors the farms, because if you're not careful, somebody will truck in 100 people and they'll pick your farm in one night.
Seems like a lot of effort to steal cherries. So you have a lot of security issues and I think gang-related issues and squatters, and how does that impact how you work?
Well, I mean, it's challenging because it's something we didn't, like when I first moved down there, we didn't have to go through all this. And then it's getting worse and worse every year. So it's having to adjust and hire security and more people.
So you have security on you at all times?
So I have 2 personal security guards with me at all times, a bulletproof vehicle. And on the farms, we've gotten together with about 25 other producers. So we have like our own police force, if you will, for a security company. And that's mainly not only to keep the farm safe, but also most importantly to keep our workers safe.
So other issues environmentally?
Well, we're definitely seeing climate change.
Yep.
We're seeing how that's impacting us. In 2012, El Salvador got hit with coffee leaf rust, or roya, and that's been really, really challenging for us, for everybody down there, actually.
So how does roya affect the crop?
Okay, so roya, the easiest way for me to explain it, or the way I understood it once an agronomist gave me the technical explanation, was that roya is like AIDS. So just like AIDS, you don't die from AIDS, but it depletes all your natural immune system.
Yeah.
So that's what it does to the tree. So the tree's going to die from any other disease it has because it doesn't have anything to fight them off.
Interesting. Okay. And so preventatively, have you done anything?
Well, we're spraying. I mean, we've always had roya, but usually it was, a tree here, a tree there, you'd spray, you wouldn't worry about it, but now we went from doing 4 foliar sprays that were just nutrients only to doing 8 that are not only nutrients, but preventative to roya.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to touch on Kilimanjaro. Obviously, that's the coffee we're going to be tasting today. We think of your farms, we tend to like it the best, not that we're biased. Now, all of your farms are located on Santa Ana.
Yes, they're all located on the Santa Ana volcano.
So very similar region, but all with very distinct tastes. What sets Kilimanjaro apart from the others?
Well, I think with Kilimanjaro, it has a lot to do with the Kenya variety we have. I mean,
Yeah.
because Los Alpes is, if the road was paved, it would be 5-10 minutes from
Yeah.
the farm, but it turns it into 30.
Yeah.
And so it's very similar microclimate and everything, but we have Typica there, and then we have the Kenya variety in
Okay.
Kilimanjaro.
Since you've taken over the farm, obviously there's been a change in an increase in quality from when your father was running things. What changes did you make?
I think to me it helped that I didn't grow up going to the farms because I didn't get used to, oh, this is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
So I came in kind of with fresh eyes and coffee, the first thing I saw with the fruit is it's a fruit.
Yeah.
It goes from green to red. So it was encouraging. Are you making fun of me? No. Oh, is that you? Okay. So it was, pretty much telling people like, hey, we need to pick it right. We need to pick, blood red or burgundy red. You can't pick the yellows. You can't pick the orange ones, unless it's an orange bourbon. But, you have to get it when it's fully ripe.
So would there be a reason why you'd specifically pick blood red or burgundy red?
Yeah, so again, a great way to see it is like with a plum. When you pick up a plum that's like the blood red, you've got more acidity.
Yeah.
And then when it's a darker burgundy red, it's more juiciness and sweetness, and it's the same in a cup
Yeah.
for coffee. So all our washed processes, whatever those might be,
Yeah.
will have an equal balance of both because that's what you want to highlight.
Yeah.
And then when we do a pulp natural, we'll try to do almost all burgundy.
Okay. So you've got, you've got a good understanding of how ripeness affects the end cup. Do your workers necessarily?
Yes, they get when I first started, one of the other things I did besides get them to try like green cherries, unripes, and ripe cherries was giving them a green banana and a ripe banana and saying, hey, which one do you prefer? This is why we're picking this way.
Yeah. So one of the first things I knew about you before we had your coffee was I'd heard you were really good at picking. That was what you've become known for. How do you ensure that that's followed through? Obviously, everyone's paid by weight.
They're paid by weight, and they're paid significantly more
Okay.
for the perfectly sorted coffee. And then also, J Hill, the mill that processes our coffee, is pretty cool because as a producer, I get a report from from all the day lots I send in that gives me if there was any broca, if there were the percentage of floaters, if there were any unripes, if there were any greens. So that would immediately be a flag. And I'm always at the mill anyways, or at the farm, so I'm overseeing that. But there's there's a lot of checkpoints.
Yeah. So you've always worked with J Hill Mill?
Yes.
Yeah. Did your family or did you seek them out?
It's funny, and I didn't know that at the time, but the first person my great-grandfather shared Bourbon with was Mr. James Hill, who started
Really?
J Hill. Yeah.
Far out. So they have a nursery there?
So I've outsourced that part of it.
Yep.
They have a million tree nursery every year. The agronomists help me out. They're the ones that go in, select coffee trees from which they're to pick the cherries for.
Yeah.
The nursery, they have a wet mill and they have a dry mill.
Yeah. I've heard they've done some interesting work with grafting and...
They're doing a lot of grafting
Yeah.
on Robusta root, and then some other varieties they picked up in Brazil also, that it's not so much about the cup quality, but the sturdiness of the root system.
So resistance to disease and all of that. Cool. Now they process your coffee, and one of the things we're going to be tasting tonight is obviously a difference in processing because we've got your coffee processed as a washed, as natural, and as a pulp natural. So in terms of a natural, could you explain that process?
So the natural, what it means is we're not removing the fruit. So when the coffee comes into the mill, they'll go ahead and float the coffee cherry to get the dirt and everything off, but also to get the floaters out. And then it will either go on patios or drying beds. And I think there's a photo on here that you'll see it on patios as far as the naturals go. There.
Oh, timing.
Yeah.
And so how does the pulp natural end compare to that?
So the pulp natural means that we remove the fruit and then it goes immediately either to drying beds or patios. So it doesn't go through fermentation to remove the mucilage.
I've always wondered, what is the difference between the pulp natural and the honey process that you make?
We can't do honey because we don't have aquapulpers. So when you're controlling the red, black, yellow, and all the honeys they have, it's because they have a desmucilaginador, an aquapulper that you're physically removing the mucilage, and you're able to control
The percentage?
the setting and the percentage you want to leave on the bean. It's like a washing machine, I would describe it.
About the pulper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the aquapulping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So basically, you've got well, there's a couple of ways you can describe it. They're round cylinders, and they have a series of, I guess, indentations on it. And so this is what's physically, like a cheese grate, like a grater almost, yeah? And so this is what rips the flesh off. And generally what they do is have the pulp is graded for the size of the cherry, and this is obviously quite critical, because obviously too tight, then we're actually going to cause physical damage. Too far apart, we're not removing enough of the fruit. But generally they run them in series, so you start with a primary and then a secondary, and then obviously a final. You tend to find that most of the fruit that comes off the primary, or the first pass that comes through, is the best, and then obviously down and down and down. So yeah, look, it's a fairly simplistic process, but it's a very with the right sort of calibration, and they've got the machines sort of calibrated correctly. It's quite efficient.
This is maybe the difference between black honey, red honey, like in the diffuse version, how much you leave on?
How much you leave on?
Well, it's how much you leave on, but also with honey processed coffees, sorry, Aida, but yes, with honey processed coffees, one of the things that's very key, and look, there isn't really, I suppose, just to go back one step, everyone's got a slightly different vibe on how they do it, but predominantly with, say, honey process, we're really trying to remove just the skin and leave the flesh behind, and then what we're doing is placing that on raised beds, so African raised beds, and then covering it with a dark plastic, and so we're trying to obviously add heat to the coffee as well. And then the colour of the honey or honeying of the coffee is the age of which the fruit will actually dehydrate or darken around the outside. So black honey is the very darkest that you would do, and that can be up to sort of between 18 and 21 days. That in terms of this sort of I suppose drying kind of phase to it. And then, and then the lighter honeys are obviously a yellow, red, orange, and black, yeah.
How does that compare to the pulp naturally?
So the pulp natural, all of the mucilage is on there. And that takes, for us, it only takes 8 to 9 days on a drying bed. And it's also going to depend on the altitude of the mill and the temperature. Because for it to go that long, they're pretty high up. They have a mill that's pretty high up.
Yeah, so a lot of the Costa Rican black honeys that you're getting, La Lajas, some of the stuff that's coming out of the Sonora, Volcan Azul sort of guys, they're very high mills, and so you're seeing very heavy levels of sort of honeying in the coffee. But remembering that they're trying to push that coffee as far as they can to get as much fruitiness into the cup before it spoils. So yes, you go too far and then you end up with, over fermented coffee and, generally not such a great sort of in-cup experience. But I would say in terms of Aida's honey process, I would think it would be more akin to a red honey in that sort of duration, sort of coming off yellow into a red honey. So you will see that written descriptively, I guess, a lot. So it's the duration of which the coffee is being honeyed. There's no bees used in the making of the process for those that we're thinking that it may be. It's the colour of the water when it gets washed, and so it turns, they say it's miel or honey, and so that's where it got the nickname, the honey process, yeah. There you go. Any other questions? You keep firing them at us as well, you're more than welcome.
So the final process you've got today for us is fully washed, so it's a traditional washed from El Salvador?
Yes, the fully washed is where we depulp the coffee and we let it sit in a fermentation tank for 12 hours. Then it's washed and drying beds or patio.
And so you also offer a couple of different wash. You've got the Kenyan, the Ethiopian, the Burundi, which we've had before and was really good. How do they differ?
Well, we do, with the Kenya, it's a dry fermentation, and that tends to highlight more, for whatever reason, the acidity, so it gives you more of that sparkling acidity.
Yeah.
With the Ethiopian, it's underwater fermentation, and that tends to give you more body, more juiciness, sweetness.
Yep.
And then the Burundi is the best of both worlds, because you start off with a day of Kenya, a day of Ethiopia, and then wash and soak.
So for these processes, how do you learn about them? Do you go to Kenya and Ethiopia? Or?
No, I've never been to those origins, but it's I've been working on these experimental they're not experimental anymore, but I've been working on those processes for 10 years. And it was, trial and error, and it's when my customers visit that I can say, hey, how do you do it? How do they do it in Kenya, and why? And how do they do it in Ethiopia, and why? Just, again, curiosity. That's how we got there.
Yeah. So you have a really unusual way of going about things with processing. You give an offer.
So basically, my customers will get an order form, and they'll get the description of all the processes, and they can tell me what they want. It's like building your own pizza. They can tell me all the ingredients. How do they want it processed? How do they want it soaked? How do they want it fermented? Traditional 6 hours or 18 or 24. I mean, they tell me what to do, and we do it.
So if, like anything, we can tell you anything?
Anything. I mean, we'll do anything, but you have to pay. You have to take it.
Right.
Whatever
Okay.
results, it's all on you.
Yeah.
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 I've also heard you've been doing some stuff with J. Hill Mill and enzymes in fermentation.
We're doing, there's a company out of California, Scott Laboratories, that have been working with the wine industry for a long time as far as yeasts. And then so we've been playing around, I think 4 years now, we've been playing around with different yeasts, doing fermentation to see what that is like.
What is it like?
It's a lot of work. You have to baby the yeast. You have to wake them up, and then they have to have the right temperature of water. So it's like you're running them a bath. And then as you're waiting for the coffee to finish depulping, you have to put scoops of coffee in the yeast, because if not, they die, because you need to feed them. So they're like little tiny newborns.
I tried having a sourdough starter once.
So, I mean, it's, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's not making that much of a difference as of now. For all the extra effort we're having to go through.
Okay, so not.
We'll see. They added another yeast this year that we tried, so now we have 2.
Yep.
And we'll see if they keep adding any more.
So aside from Kilimanjaro today, we're also going to be tasting some coffees from the ABS program, some Mexican coffees. Can you tell us a bit about ABS?
So ABS was the Aida Battle Selection program is a program I started with J. Hill in El Salvador, where I was always being asked for more coffee, which I didn't have any more to sell. And then I started working with some of their producers that weren't in the high-end specialty market, and helping them, making sure they were sorting. I mean, J. Hill was already processing our coffee.
Yeah.
So in helping them find buyers, the program's 100% transparent. The producer knows the FOB price, the roaster knows the FOB price. It's just me making the connection and me helping the producer, educating them on why they need to pick this way, why they need to sort, and all that.
So were they resistant to some of these changes, or pretty much like, you tell us what to do?
No, I mean, they've been very receptive. I mean, they're excited. I mean, I've been doing this program since 2009 with J. Hill, so it's gone really well.
Yeah, from what we've got on the table, it's gone very well. So to them, the value of the certification, is it just increase in quality, or is it?
Well, it's not only increase in quality, but it's an added premium they didn't have before, because they're getting more money.
Yeah. Awesome. So in addition to buying these Mexicans, Peter, you've chosen to contribute to Teddy's social welfare program?
Yeah, I think it's... firstly, when I got the sniff that Aida was working, it was down. Well, it was actually, we were Facebook messaging one another, and hey, what's going on? What's happening with it? Coffees, blah 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 blah. And she's, I'm in Mexico, man. And I'm like, what are you doing down there? And she goes, oh, just working with some Mexican farms down here. And I'm like, oh, keep us in the loop. What's happening? Because we're sort of really warming to a lot of Mexican coffees. We've had a couple of good crackers over the years, some really nice coffees. And so with Aida, it was, whoa, check it out. I love it. It's my echo, 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 echo. God, I've been wanting to do that all my life, I have to say. Tick that one off the bucket list. And so with the Mexican coffees, we knew Aida was sort of very active in the farms, and that was great. And so we kind of reached out and I said, whatever, and we knew she was doing this program with Ecom, so we reached out to Ecom and I said, whatever she's doing, I want it. And they're like, yeah, all right, whatever. Anyway, so we got basically the 6 farms. We got the pre-shipped samples sent to us. We bought 5 of the 6 farms, and we would have bought all 6, quite honestly, but it was just too much. It was too much coffee for us to handle. Hopefully this coming harvest we might be able to take more on. You will taste the coffees. They're absolutely outstanding. And the beauty of this particular program, it's completely transparent. We know the FOB price of the coffee. And then we made a very clear decision that outside of that, we were going to, I guess, invest in a social welfare program that's over and above the premium that we've just paid, and it's called Teddy. And it's actually named after the major sort of, I guess, owner of Ecom. And so the decision this year was to take our contribution and invest into infrastructure. So there's, I guess for the want of the better word, they're cherry lifters. So they're helping the workers lift the bags of cherry onto the trucks, on and off the trucks, and also at the mill, I believe. I think there's a couple there that we've got. So from our point of view, that's where the decision was made to obviously improve their working conditions. So that's sort of something that's significantly important to our business, and we'll continue to do that, as we've done with, for those that you were here last month when we had our Kenyan producer here, Boyce Harries from Charnia Estate. Equally, we're doing similar things with a trade school that he's created on his estate as well, that we're looking to provide sort of further training resources, not only personal resources, but also physical resources for that particular community as well. So it's our little bit for what we can do, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks. And when you taste Aida's coffee, these Mexican coffees, they're incredible. They really are. They're very delicious. So I think, yeah, just from my point, one of the things that's really key is that as baristas and as coffee roasters, even more so, I think we've become very collaborative, and we're quite happy to talk to each other more openly about what we do. But one of the things that really still strikes me is that farmers typically don't communicate or share their knowledge, and they do keep to themselves a lot. And so to seek out new innovation is a very difficult process, and that's one of the things that I admire about Aida quite a lot, in that she's prepared to take her knowledge and take her learnings and apply these back into these communities. And I don't really think people really fully have an understanding of the impact that legacy that she will have on those communities. I think it's still early days. I can definitely see the future, and I think those communities are really going to it's one hell of a legacy you're going to leave behind, let me tell you. So this pursuit to sort of producing higher quality coffee and linking that coffee to buyers, I think is a really critical step. But also making sure that we can get, Aida and Boyce together, because it was so obvious to us, and we've already had a bit of a Skype call this afternoon, or a call with Boyce in Kenya, and he's obviously into harvest at the moment. But it really struck me as a very obvious connection, in that Aida is really fascinated in East African processing methods. Boyce is playing around with honey processed or Central American style processing methods, and we have what we believe is the first honey processed East African coffee in the building. And so I'm like, we've got to get these two guys together. So I'm like, hey, Boyce, would you go to El Salvador? Yeah, man. Aida, do you want to go to Kenya? Yeah, man. So let's just make this thing happen. Let's get you two sharing, because let's be honest, we're all going to taste the benefits of such a great collaboration. And I definitely want to be there when history is being made, let me tell you. It's going to be an amazing few days. So, I Yes, Josh.
So I just think, I feel like that's something we mentioned earlier on in the conversation that you touched on, is the fact that as a producer, as a farmer, you don't necessarily communicate or have contact with other farmers, so to speak. There's no community of farmers that get together regularly or communicate.
Hmm.
Just if you want to expand on that or something, I'm not sure. Can you expand perhaps on what was discussed today, the voice even, or
Well, I mean, it was basically visiting, him coming down and me going, or him coming to me, and then me going to see him. And no, I mean, it's interesting that, you know, in this specialty industry, baristas have their own guild, roasters have their own guild. We are starting a producers guild, but it's going to take a while because there's not that close community you have in the other industries, I mean, in the other sectors of our industry with the producers for some reason.
So in terms of the industry as a whole, where do you think it's going? Do you have any predictions?
Ooh, this industry. I don't know. I mean, I think people will demand more and more transparency. It's been an amazing ride for me just to see how far we've come since I started in educating the consumers as far as varieties or microclimates, or you've got people, some people are interested, others are not. They don't care where their coffee comes from. They just want to drink a great cup of coffee and pay for it. But I mean, the work that's been done by, you know, wholesale teams or by baristas or by roasters, getting that message out there on behalf of all of us is just incredible. And I hope that continues.
I just want to hear from you, how good was your espresso this morning, the natural Aida?
It was delicious. Yes, it was really good. Thank
Now,
you.
of the limited roasters that she sells Kilimanjaro in the world to, it was the best that she's ever had. Good on you, Willie. Killed it today, mate, let me tell you. And it's delicious. The natural's absolutely delicious. Correct?
Yes, it's very, very
Absolutely.
good. Best I've ever had.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to hear.
Wait, that's not going on social media, right?
No, absolutely. We've just recorded that, so I've got it for posterity now. So it was, you know, the spider and the fly, really, wasn't it? But yeah, I think from our point of view, it's we really sort of want to just open it up to any questions. If you have any further sort of questions, or if you'd like to ask any questions of Aida right now, that would be great. There'll obviously be a further opportunity for you to talk to her later after the cupping, but yes.
Before you took over, how was the quality of the Kilimanjaro farm? Like when your dad had it, like was it, say, in the top 20 or was it not?
My answer is going to blow you away. My family had never had their own coffee until we won COE. They'd never had it. And that is because, again, most of El Salvador producers, or Salvadorian producers, do not have their own wet mill or dry mill. So we used to sell our cherry to a big mill, and they would take it, blend it. I mean, now they're doing a lot more separation and everything, but back then it was just, we'd never had it ever.
So all that awesome coffee was basically getting mixed in with everyone else's, pretty much.
So was the coffee already that good, but it was just getting blended into everything else and no one knew?
Oh yeah, I didn't do anything. I mean, my first year, I mean, we worked on the picking and the sorting, but I mean, there's nothing I didn't make any changes on the farms because I'd been there a few months.
So sudden, like, just in the first year to like got enough one, like that's really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a great team. I really do. I mean, I'm lucky to work with some of the best farm workers in El Salvador. I've seen their kids grow up. I mean, they've been there, you know, year after year helping us out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about it before, but when one considers winning sort of Cup of Excellence in 2003, I mean, that was really the competition that kind of announced Aida to the world. Apart from that, it would have been, you know, you would not be here today, let's be honest. No. That was a very defining moment for Aida's life, absolutely. And I think that's the impact that Cup of Excellence can have. I mean, you look at the Petersons with Esmeralda, I mean, come on, you know, I mean, these guys are like, they're also rock stars, not as big as you though, right? I just want to let you know, but, you know, They can't fill a stadium like you can, but needless to say. Any other questions? Questions? Yes, sir.
One of the attractive qualities of your company is that you've really embraced the technology, which I think a lot of people find admirable for you. And the way you're pushing your boundaries all the time. So one of the big step changes, it seems to be to me, is the import of the Kenyan varieties in your farm. Now, that, for a business, that's quite a risky decision to come out and do that. I don't know if it's your generation or whichever generation first thought of it, but what was the thought process behind going out? What seems to me to be quite a big step, and how did you zero in on the Kenyan varieties?
I mean, my father bought Kilimanjaro in 1973, so it was the Kenya variety was already on there. And it was actually the family that owned it before, the ones that brought it. I mean, I would figure, thinking of the Bourbon, they were trying, Típica is a lower yielding variety than the Bourbon. So I'm figuring my great-great-grandfather was like, oh, okay, let me try something new, and they say the cup is good, so let's see what happens.
Happy accidents. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how
My name's Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Peter's been talking about it all year in some of the education sessions, so it's a great opportunity. The question I've got is, in the interview you did a few years back, you mentioned that for roasters, the challenge is being able to convey to the consumer the additional price that they need to pay for coffee because of the way it's produced. Now, that was a couple of years ago when you said that in an interview. Does that still hold at the moment going forward?
I think it does.
Roasters are more
They're better at it. It is always challenging, I'm assuming, and I think you can answer this better than I can, but what I see is, again, you've got your consumers that are coffee geeks, just like we are, and they want to get into it and they want to hear about it. But then you have others saying, well, why are you charging me $5 for a cup of espresso? And they don't understand everything that went behind and the social project that you might have. So, it's important to kind of tell that story, and that would be, again, mostly a barista doing all the talking on behalf of all of us.
I think, Michael, it's also a case of understanding. The market's obviously it's a very wide market. The consumer market's very wide, and their tastes are very wide. So I think you've got to stake your place in that market and go, this is the market or the consumer that I want to talk to and I want to resonate with, And it was interesting because I'm not sure if some of you went to Peter Giuliano's talk. A couple of weeks ago. Would any of you go to these talk? Peter Giuliano on the flavour lexicon? Oh, okay, cool. Anyway, so it was interesting. Wow. Anyway, one of the key things he put up on the board, what was the 10 key drivers to a great coffee sort of experience? And of course, he left number one off the top, and it was, for me, it's always been very obvious. Flavour is the key driver. That's the number one successful thing that people want. This is what they want in their coffee. And if you're fixated and focused on flavour, then as far as I'm concerned, that's half the battle won. Then you've got to source good coffee and work with good people. And so, buying Aida's coffee certainly helps in that. We're certainly not going to say, and we were talking about it today, that we find some of her processing methods at times challenging to get the best out of in the roast. We don't know why that is. Maybe it's our attitude and our approach to roasting coffee, but that's what we've got to continually keep to learn doing. But I think having a good product to start with certainly makes our job as a roaster a lot easier. And look, Aida gives me 11 options to prepare the coffee. So she basically, sometimes a bit slow at it because I'm contemplating. But come on, dude, what preparations do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And so I've got this amazing palette that I can draw on to produce the coffee. So I've got I've got the lovely natural coffee, and you know, I said quite openly today on the cupping table that it's lovely and fruity. It's certainly not my favourite of Aida's three that we have. I love the complexity of the wash coffee, absolutely. The natural's a bit obvious to me in terms of what it puts to the cup, but when you really get to know the wash, there's lots of layers and there's lots of complexity, and that's what sort of resonates with me. But everyone's different, and that's okay too.
Aida, is this your first visit to Australia?
It is my first visit to Australia, yes. It was I was in Seattle, which was 2.5 hours to LA and then 15 hours to come here on Thursday.
Arrived Thursday morning. Yeah. So just quickly, we're very honoured because I think you need to understand, particularly with Aida's coffee, well, to some degree, she chooses who she wants to work with. She is approached quite a lot for people to come and work with, and again, we're very fortunate that she chooses to work with us in the Southern Hemisphere. I believe we're the only roaster in the Southern Hemisphere you work with.
For Kilimanjaro.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Kilimanjaro. I should say that. Oh, yeah, Kilimanjaro. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we have a deal, and you know, and I have said to Aida, I will continue to buy her coffee until the day I die. Absolutely.
You know what's interesting about Peter is we'd never met before. On this visit was the first time we met face to face, and from year one that we started working together, he became one of my best customers, which was, it doesn't happen in coffee. You know, usually you have to work with people throughout the years, but with him it was always like,
yeah, let's just do it. Look, let's be honest. Come on, Aida, come on. I've been kicking. As I said to some dude, I don't know who I was talking to, a lovely couple that were down from the Gold Coast, and so, you know, sort of at the end of Schoolies Week this week, this will be the commencement of my 35th year in coffee. Absolutely. So for me, it's to identify and see the potential of a high quality coffee. For me, it's a no-brainer because of what I have had to experience over my life. So when that first phone call came in from Aida and she's like, "Hey, Peter Wolff," I'm like, "Yeah, how you going?" She goes, "Aida here," and I'm like, you know, it's just a radio station doing a bit of a hoax on me at the moment, and it was, yeah, it's been an absolute privilege to have Aida's coffee, absolutely. And yeah, we will continue to work with Aida, thick and thin, good and bad, roya, no roya, high yields, no yields, and every year we will continue to buy her coffee, and we will stand by her, and absolutely, and I think that's the strength and the bond that our families have, absolutely. Sasha.
What's the most challenging part of being a grower and producer of coffee in El Salvador to you? Security, and you know, now we're facing roya and the climate change, but mostly security for sure.
What's causing that? Because you said before it's getting worse.
yeah, it's gangs. The government hasn't done much, and unfortunately I think it's a little bit of both. The politics, and then the gangs are kind of taking over certain areas,
So you have cherry theft, which is a big one, because it's cash. It's basically cash. You need to understand that cherry is money to somebody. They have some very unusual sort of occupancy sort of rights, and we've been living with that since pretty much constantly since Aida's been here on the visit, dealing with her security company, with squatters moving in on the land. And they have only a certain amount of time to get them physically removed, and if they can't get them off the property quickly, then it becomes a very difficult legal process to get them off. And predominantly a lot of these are gangs that are moving onto the grounds, and they're basically threatening the farm manager not to sort of tip Aida off that they're there, so she doesn't ring security up and say, "Get them off the property." So that's been 50% of her communication since she's been here, just trying to manage that at the moment. And I'm like, man, sell that farm and get the hell out of there, dude. Build a condo on it or something. But, you know, yeah.
With the climate change, is it a reduction in the quantity of cherries that the trees produce? Is it like less rainfall in the area? What sort of
it's a little bit of both. Or a little bit of everything, I should say. Getting rain when we don't need to be having rain, and then no rain I mean, it's been everything. Temperature has risen.
It's certainly, look, it would have to be a common thread, Sasha, because even when Boyce was here last month, he was saying, talking to the old guys, this is when the rains would come, and it was always like, you could set your watch by it. And we were only communicating with him today, and he's delighted that he's just started to get his rains now, and that's like 5 weeks later than expected, and he's been basically irrigating 24/7 up until this point to get that last sort of water into the cherries before harvest. So globally, I would have to say it's a huge challenge. Absolutely, yeah. Any other questions? Because we still have the cupping, and you're more than welcome to have a chat to Aida after we finish the cupping. So, is there any further questions? Last, going once, twice. We're done. Kelsey.
Alrighty, so I've got 4 tables set up. If you want to just evenly divide yourselves, pick a table. We're going to be going from snaking around from 1 to 5 to start off with, just tasting the Mexican. So they're all ready to go on the dry fragrance if you want to hit the tables.